Third one.
Hey Facebook friends, happy Sunday evening to you. We're here in the Weather Center to check on your forecast for you, give you a little update because we're going to be a little bit late on CBS 6 News tonight. We're coming on about 11:37 due to the length of the football game earlier, New England and Jacksonville. So let's check some numbers today. 83 the high, 72 the low in Richmond. We're going to get down and talk about Florence. So some folks are joining us from other places. We want to give you a quick update on that. Charlotte got pounded by a lot of heavy rain overnight last night. They're out of the woods right now, at least from torrential downpours. They still have flooding going on there. And notice some of the feeder bands on the outer fringes here coming back towards the Wilmington area yet again in North Carolina, and even the Raleigh area has been dealing with some flooding as well. A lot of that heavy rain is starting to shift northward into the New River Valley and the Roanoke Valley of Virginia. It's going to streak up I-81 as well as the center of the storm, what's left of it, tracks up into West Virginia tomorrow and then hooks around to the right. We don't actually have a forecast track plotted anymore because the Hurricane Center is not issuing advisories. The Weather Prediction Center up in Silver Spring, Maryland has taken over those duties, and basically they center the storm and they talk about the potential for rain and wind going forward. So that's what we're pretty much going to do, but the center of circulation, what's left of it, again, is going to track to our west and then north of us over the next 2 days. So let's get in a little bit tighter. These are flood warnings that are in effect currently. This is a live view of the radar out of Blacksburg in southwest Virginia, and you can see some pretty good downpours here. Had a tornado warning over in Bedford County a little bit earlier this afternoon. Had some tornado warnings also down in northern North Carolina, and there is the threat for some severe weather across extreme southwest Virginia tonight into tomorrow. But this is a pretty good band of significant rain heading through the Durham area, and that's probably going to come up into Roanoke overnight tonight. Here's the Doppler radar estimates as to rainfall. We've already talked about the much higher amounts down here, which exceeded 30 inches outside Morehead City, North Carolina. And a lot of that heavy rain streaked into Raleigh today. Charlotte picked up a good half a foot of rain, and now that's coming up into southwestern Virginia, while central Virginia not going to see the bulk of this. Here's what's currently going on. Closer to home, just a few widely scattered showers here down I-95. The heaviest rain from Lynchburg back through Roanoke and going up into the mountains as well. All right, here's the forecast as we see it. As we go through the night, that heavy rain coming up into the Roanoke Valley and up I-81 and through parts of West Virginia. This is 7 o'clock in the morning. As we go through the day, a lot of that shifts north. Some of it comes east. Still some of these feeder bands around the outer, I guess we'll call them feeder bands because the circulation trying to hold together to the west. I'm kind of getting caught up in the speak from all this week with the hurricanes, Nick, or the hurricane talk. So again, some of these outer bands coming up into central Virginia. That's 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We go into Tuesday morning, and notice how it's just kind of falling apart here. The center of circulation, what's left of it going to our north. On Tuesday, we'll still see a few showers and thunderstorms. And watch what happens by the time we get to Wednesday. The sky clears. It's going to be pretty nice for Wednesday afternoon. Lots of sunshine, and the rest of the week here in central Virginia is looking pretty nice. So we'll move on. We'll show you a few more things. First of all, the rain forecast from what's left of Florence. This is the 2 to 4 inch band or shield that's going to come through southwest Virginia overnight tonight. Folks have been asking me about the James River, and I've been checking the river forecast, and we're expecting the gauge way out to the west in Scottsville to get up close to flood stage on Tuesday, but not reaching flood stage. And the Richmond Weston gauge through Wednesday shows a rise to about 9 feet, but that is still below flood stage. So if all plays out right, we may not see really any river flooding from the James, but that's still in question depending on what happens overnight, exactly where the heaviest rain falls. So additional inch or so here in the Richmond area is certainly a possibility, maybe as much as 2 inches, particularly west of I-95, where some of these heavier showers and thunderstorms will set up shop tomorrow. All right, in terms of the wind gust forecast, this is overnight tonight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Still seeing some gusts in the 20s. The sustained winds are going to range between about 5 and 15 for the most part. But notice these stronger gusts out to the west potentially in the morning tomorrow and going through the day. Again, west of I-95, some wind gusts over 30 miles an hour. A possibility, a strong southeasterly wind coming up the mountains here, the upslope flow. Still a wind gust, potentially in the mid-20s here in Richmond tomorrow evening and into Tuesday morning. Remember, the storm's going to be tracking to the north of us by this point, so then the wind finally begins to die down. That's Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening, and that'll pretty much do it. In terms of rain chances here in Metro, Richmond, most of Central Virginia, they're high tomorrow, and again on Tuesday. Will dry out Wednesday through Friday, and then a cool front sliding in from the north will get hung up over the area next weekend. A few showers and thunderstorms each day. This is not going to be like we've seen over the past week, though, with these deluges of tropical moisture. This is right now 76 degrees in Richmond, 70s across the board. We're really used to this. It's been the same pretty much every night this week. And 70s going all the way north. You know, folks in upstate New York dealing with the tropical levels of humidity all the way back through much of the Great Lakes, and temperatures pretty uniform. Warm in the Midwest right now. St. Louis checking in at 85 degrees. You go out west, still some pretty warm weather. The East Coast, or the West Coast rather, seeing temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Fall officially begins next weekend. So we'll see if Mother Nature cooperates and brings a little cooler weather. I don't see anything major in terms of change over the next week or so, but down the road, there are some signs later on this month that we will see some substantially cooler weather try to move in our direction. That's still a ways out, though. 80s along the East Coast. These were highs today. 90s in parts of the central part of the country. We're expecting an overnight low in the low 70s, just like the last couple nights. This morning we were 72. Tomorrow morning I think we'll be about the same here in Richmond. Upper 60s off to the northwest. Highs tomorrow up into the low 80s again, and it's going to get a little bit warmer as the week goes on, especially as we see a little bit more sunshine. Here's your temperature trend. We're going up into the upper 80s by the time we get to Wednesday, mid and upper 80s through the rest of the week. And even into next weekend, it looks like we'll be a bit above normal. So that's kind of a sneak peek at the forecast. It's overnight about 72 degrees. Just a few scattered showers around overnight. Many of us won't get wet, just a little bit of fog. And pretty much the same story for tomorrow that we saw today. Maybe some more numerous showers and some thunderstorms, particularly to the west of Richmond. There's always a chance an isolated severe storm could pop up, but we are not in a severe weather outlook at this time. So Nick, what's everybody chatting about in there?
David's wondering, is it safe to drive to Blacksburg tomorrow?
It's a good question. It's probably okay to drive there. Just beware of where you're going, exactly where you're going. If you're going towards a flood-prone area, there are going to be some of those rivers in southwest Virginia are looking at some moderate to potential major flooding. So, you know, the interstates, the main roads are going to be fine, but if you're going near a river, you got to be cautious that you might run into some flooded roads.
Brandon says, looks like the storm pulled a Terry Fisher. That's awesome. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but...
I'm not sure either. Let us know.
We have a lot of folks saying hello. Thanks for the updates. We have Holly, Alan Thomas, Diana Garris. Denise was saying, you know, the death toll from the storm, I believe it's now up to 18. She said it's heartbreaking, and Tammy's has all those folks that lost a loved one in her prayers.
Right, and this is one of the reasons why we try to prepare people as early as possible. We do sometimes give you more of the worst case scenario, and like in Richmond's case, it ended up being better, but for others, unfortunately, it ended up being worse, as I said. So we've got to be prepared for these things, because next time it could be us here in Virginia. So, but prayers are going out to all the folks down in North Carolina. Survivors is going to take a long time to clean up some of those areas.
Claudia is saying, thanks for the update from South Hill. You all have done an amazing job keeping everyone posted.
We appreciate that.
Now that kind of contrasts from this interesting comment, because I set this Facebook up saying, you know, can you believe it's been a week? We were just here last Sunday really talking about the storm and how the forecast track really wouldn't probably be certain until maybe late Tuesday. I think we were saying, you know, at that point it was still kind of a little bit uncertain. So this person says, well, y'all don't know what's going on with this storm. Do you have to be a degree to be a meteorologist? But really with someone, my background in news, I kind of see how you know, like you're saying, this really could have been us. I feel like my perspective is we really dodged a bullet. You look at all the devastation in North Carolina, these poor people dealing with flooding, all the people rescued, the pets, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin cleaning up from flooding.
And the initial thing, I think it was literally 2 weekends ago, Nick, we were first talking about this storm way out in the Atlantic, and the initial thought was this thing wasn't even going to come close to the United States. So that was a miss. I remember literally at the beginning of last week retweeting, and I mentioned this on our Facebook Live, from one of the hurricane gurus, where Florence was last Monday. Within 100 miles of that point, no storm had ever in history, recorded history, made it to make a landfall in the U.S. They'd always turned out somewhere or fallen apart or whatever. So this was historic in that respect from that point where it was on Monday. Obviously, as it continued across the Atlantic, it became clearer to us that it was going to make landfall. I don't think at any point we were really running for the hills here in Richmond. That's the ironic thing. I don't think our forecast really changed all that much. I think a lot of people jumped to conclusions when they saw a landfalling storm in North Carolina and thought Isabel, thought all these things, and oh my gosh, if it's coming in North Carolina, it's definitely coming to Richmond, and that's not always the case. The question, of course, was that building ridge to the north, which happened as forecast. It was a strong ridge, and it pushed the storm a little farther south, and we lucked out here in Richmond. It could have been a little bit worse, but that's why we tell you these things a week in advance. You don't know specifics. You just know the threat of landfall and what could happen in various places. So that's what we try to spell out for you. Hope you guys understand that. It's better to be prepared than not. I certainly would rather go through the preparations and then say, okay, don't need to take action.
Well, and Jennifer's saying she was supposed to go down to Myrtle Beach for vacation next weekend. She's wondering if she should cancel.
Hey, you got to check in with the local folks there and the local officials and see what exactly is going on there. It's the other thing when you were talking about forecasting. Do you need a degree or whatever? There's so much data on the internet. You can see the model data, but how do you make ends meet? Our storm chaser Mike Hall had a great post on Facebook, mainly to his friends, but he was talking about you guys that are complaining. You don't understand how hard it is to forecast. He said, I have access to all these models. He said, I'll be glad to give you the access. I'll even teach you how to read the models. And I challenge you to come up with an accurate forecast a week in advance. And it's true. There's just so much data. There's so much to take in. The atmosphere is always changing, folks. It's something that I think we mentioned last weekend will never be 100%, no matter how hard we try, because the atmosphere is continuously in motion.
Well, and I think I replied to some critic or just someone that was grumbling on our Facebook page, what about being thankful for the men and women who spend countless hours at the National Hurricane Center stressing out, worrying about these forecasts? The people go up in the planes to get a firsthand view of everything and monitor the winds. And
yes, it's an honor. I know folks, I'm not sure if I know anyone currently at the National Hurricane Center, but I do know a lot of folks that have worked at the Storm Prediction Center, which of course they put out all the watches for severe weather, and they're always monitoring for severe weather. And it's quite an honor for those folks to be hired by these organizations because it's kind of the pinnacle of forecasting. You have to be really sharp to get these jobs, but they're honored to get it, but then they have a lot of moments where they're stressed out because their job is really to protect people, and they don't want to miss a forecast. And if they do miss one, they're devastated by that. It's like, this is important to get it right, and we can't always, unfortunately, get it 100%. I wish we could. If I could get every forecast correct, I'd be a very rich man. I've told people that.
Deborah says, thank you for all your hard work. We had Sandy who's asking about Lumberton, and that's one of those areas that we saw horrible flooding along I-95. It shut down, I think it was like an 18-mile stretch.
You were talking about the tractor trailers trying to plow through that stuff.
I was really surprised this morning. I mean, we heard that I-95 was shut down last night, that somehow some motorists still seem to make it on to those stretches.
Well,
because I think there's some portions that's so spotty, I'm sure, that parts of it are flooded, parts aren't. But
and one thing the National Weather Service stresses, and a lot of people think it's kind of a corny phrase, but it's turn around, don't drown. We say that too. When you see this water in front of you, it's likely deeper than you think. So the whole idea is turn around. You try to go through, you might have the risk of drowning. So Yeah, it's seeing people just get stranded. I mean, sometimes people can't avoid it because in flash flooding, of course, water comes upon you before you can even make a move. But for the people that try to cross these roads, like you said, where the water's feet deep, it's crazy. Just don't even try it. It's not worth it.
We've seen stories even around here. I never really experienced flooding. I mean, I don't think that's something that before I worked in news I would have necessarily been conscious about, but we've just seen too many sad stories. And even with those that horrible flooding in Charlottesville and Albemarle County,
right,
people unfortunately lost their lives.
Yeah. So please, folks, don't take this stuff lightly. People don't realize the power of water and what it can do to you. It can totally sweep you off your feet, and it can pick up a car that's even heavy and just push it right aside. So, just remember that and stay safe. Just stay away from water.
PJ Rock is wondering, how will the humidity be overnight?
Humidity is going to stay high. I'm assuming he's in Richmond, so we're going to have high humidity through the week. And I brought that temperature map back up there. The temperatures are going to be high. The humidity is going to drop a little bit Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's definitely going to be drier, but it's not going to be massively less humid. I'll warn you about that. It's still going to feel like summertime for the end of summer, just not quite as muggy as it has been. It's so damp outside, but that's not really going to change until Wednesday.
Caitlin Herring has an interesting question. She's watching from Fredericksburg, and she says, do you have any idea how long the effects of those flooding and the flooding in North Carolina would last? I mean, does it really depend on the river levels and
I
all
would
of
think
those
so.
things?
I don't know for sure. I mean, some of those levels are so ridiculously high that it's going to take a long time for some of those waters to recede. Although we saw that happen in Houston with Harvey last year. It was faster than I thought in some cases. It just depends on the terrain around the various rivers. And, I mean, North Carolina has set a state record for most rain in a tropical cyclone. I think right now the highest total is about 33 inches. South Carolina actually just recorded, one place recorded over 18 inches. That's the highest amount in a tropical cyclone. So Florence will go down in the record books in both North and South Carolina for those records. Now, there's been a lot of talk on the internet today, even amongst meteorologists, about that record in South Carolina. It's a record in a tropical cyclone. If you have friends that live in South Carolina, it's not an all-time record rain event. It's just record rain in a tropical system, just to clear that up in case anybody comes up with that question. So, but Florence is going down in the record books for the Carolinas, both.
Susie says she's still getting rain where she is in North Carolina. Tanya Lanford says, thanks for keeping us informed. Willetta Hart Kirby says, thank you for all you do. Diana Schaefer Englehart, you are great. Thank you. Sandy,
we all appreciate that.
Sandy Tutwiler Dunbrack, thank you. 3 exclamation marks.
There's the current satellite radar again for those that have just tuned in. So a lot of parts of North Carolina are still getting the rain. I don't know where our latest viewer checked in from, but I mean, just seeing this band of rain coming here and starting to shift a little bit to the east, a little bit. Hopefully it stays away from Wilmington, which is right there. Wilmington just got hit so hard last night, and you've just got these tremendous bands still coming south to north. And right now it's probably around Durham and west that the heaviest rain is, over towards the Greensboro area. The Triad region is getting hit, and then Southwest Virginia. There are a lot of rivers, as I mentioned, that are going to experience potentially moderate or even major flooding, potentially later tonight, I guess, but certainly during the day tomorrow as the rivers continue to rise. And you can see that core of circulation really well west of us. So that is really good news for Richmond. And the farther west that goes and stays away from the mountains, the better news it is for the James River. So Southwest Virginia is going to take the hit. But if we don't get that rain coming too far north, that's a good thing for Central Virginia in terms of the river levels. And at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to be a major problem.
Susie said she's near Wrightsville Beach in North Carolina.
Oh, man.
Now, we also have some people throughout the night have asked, what about other storms in the Atlantic?
Yeah, I didn't even do that, Nick, because there's really, well, let's bring it up on this computer and you can just swing around here, because there's not too much going on.
Because was Helene the one that was basically just going to go out over the Atlantic?
Yeah, Helene actually has disappeared as of the late evening, so there's nothing out here. Joyce is now a tropical depression.
And did Isaac affect the islands at all?
There's Joyce just kind of moving south and then southwest, just petering out. Isaac came through the Caribbean, but very weak. It's a disturbance right now. It might try to regenerate, but it doesn't look like anything impressive. And as you can see here on this map, this is the Hurricane Center map. There's nothing else going on. They'll put little X's where there's a possibility of something developing, and there's just nothing going on at this point. This is their latest rainfall map, by the way. I've been showing this on my page throughout the week, and you can see how much is left. There's not a whole lot going on here. There's that 2 to 4, 4 to 6, like in extreme southwest Virginia. I had showed you the prediction of 2 to 4, the wide area, and then maybe up to an inch in Richmond. That was the European model that I showed, and that would probably be on the high end of things. Another little stripe of moisture going through New England.
So Nora says, okay, great. She's happy to hear the tropical update.
Yeah, the tropics are really, really quiet. It's funny, they really heated up for the first couple of weeks of the month, and that's the peak of the season, but there wasn't too much going on just before Florence developed. And now all of a sudden, you know, things are quieting down again. Maybe things will stay quiet.
Caitlin's wondering, are there any trends that you can tell if we'll get another large hurricane this season, or how is it? It just says all depends on what happens.
I haven't seen anything. I must admit, I've been so busy with what's been going on that I haven't looked real long term. I certainly don't see anything in the next week that we have to worry about, you know, long term into October. You never know. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but let's just hope not. I just brought up the drought monitor, by the way, just ironically because we've been so wet here in the east, and it's funny that the last report had some abnormally dry conditions down here in the Carolinas. Gosh. Obviously, that's disappeared now. They update this on Thursday, so the rain came right after this latest update. So that'll be wiped out. The East Coast looks pretty good. In fact, much of the Northeast had dry conditions, but they've even gotten better. It's really out west. So we've got a tale of two totally different worlds here. The East Coast is really wet, and out west is really, really dry, particularly the Rockies out into the desert southwest. I mean, this is exceptional drought on the scale here in parts of New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. So I thought that was certainly worth mentioning because it's just the other side of the spectrum, and it seems that the weather has become more and more extreme. Folks have asked me about that, and it definitely shows in a situation like this, where you've got a massive hurricane that puts down over 30 inches of rain in one location, and then you've got a drought occurring, you know, out west, and of course all the fires that they've had in California.
Guy Radosevich is asking, will it rain again? Yes.
In Richmond? Yes. Pretty safe to say it will rain again, yes.
Leanna's asking, how is South Hill looking tonight? That's one of those spots that I cannot always picture on the map for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's south side. South Hill is looking just fine tonight. So I don't expect, I don't really expect more than just some showers coming on through. It's not going to be, you know, a tremendous amount of rain. I think most of the heaviest rain is going to be to the west of South Hill. That's down on I-85, Nick, right near the North Carolina line, just for reference point.
And this is kind of a sad story, but Lee says he's searching for their friend John down in Wilmington.
Oh.
And another woman in the thread, she said she heard, you know, there was still widespread flooding in that city.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's South Hill on the map just for your reference and everybody else's reference. So you've got most of the activity again to the west. Yep. And, you know, Danville, Martinsville, those folks are going to get a little bit more rain.
I was really worried about them because of that dam that they had before, yes. But I think they've been draining that lake. So hopefully, I'm hoping that maybe that has helped out some.
Well, we'll keep everybody in our prayers for the folks down in the Carolinas that you're looking for. Hopefully everything will work out just okay. Yeah, it's just, this is the kind of situation that folks that are criticizing the forecasts in places that didn't get hit as hard don't realize how bad It really is, and it's pretty serious. So.
Well, and Nikki D had a viral Facebook post that really talked more about counting your blessings than necessarily, you know, and I mean, I really do view this as a great preparation method, because I'll be the first one to say that I don't think that I have a, you know, like a Red Cross recommended kind of like emergency kit, but we do have all of those items. And now hopefully I can find some D batteries in stock around town. And I'm going to go ahead and get a case of water, since I wasn't able to get that. And then
Nick,
it'll be all set.
The thing for Nick here behind the camera is if there's a really bad storm coming through, you're probably going to be right here. So we've got you covered. But it's important to think about these things. If you were stranded, what would you do? I mean, the chances of us having some of the issues that we're seeing in North Carolina are relatively low unless you're along a river. You know, I mean, we're not talking about the city, but the city of Richmond has flooded. Look at Gaston. Look what happened. And Charlotte had, you know, flash flood emergencies today with the rain they had. So it can happen in the cities too.
And I did notice even at Echo Lake, that was one of those areas that had some flooding earlier this season, and even the lakes at Innsbruck, everything does look pretty full right now.
Right, and that was when we saw those pictures out in the far west end. Remember on Cox Road, out near Short Pump, we had those pictures of cars being trapped in the water. And in my 20 years here, I have never seen that happen out in the far west end. So you got to be prepared for anything.
Tim is asking, will it be raining in Cumberland tomorrow morning?
At some point, yes, most likely. It may not rain all the time, but yes, numerous showers, some thunderstorms. As I mentioned, any spot west of I-95 is under the threat of some pretty heavy rain. Not to say everybody else will escape it, but the highest threats are west, because you're getting closer to the core of the storm. And as the storm starts to go by to the west, the winds are going to swing from the southeast around to the south, so that might drive some of the moisture that's more in central North Carolina up towards central Virginia, as opposed to all going to the west.
Mary Ann is wondering about Chapel Hill and Pittsboro, North Carolina area. And we also had someone asking about Midland, North Carolina. I'm not exactly sure where that is.
I'm not sure where Midland, I got to find that. If they can give us an idea of where it is, that would be great.
We still have 100 people watching. We actually had over 500 at a certain point early on. But the good news is, for any of you folks that joined us late, you can go back once we finish this up and see the entire section, the first part, where we talked a lot about Florence.
So you said Midland, North Carolina.
Yes.
Chapel Hill is just southwest of Durham, so Chapel Hill's kind of in a lot of that rain right now. Some of that heavier rain. Midland is east of Charlotte. I did not actually know that. So, yeah, they're a little east of Charlotte. So there's still some flood warnings down here. I don't know if that's because, well, it could be for street flooding and little streams and urban flooding, but it also, I don't know what rivers are down there. When we're talking about Chapel Hill, we're just kind of southwest of Durham here. So you're in this band of pretty significant rain that's going to hang around. This is from the Blacksburg radar, so a little far to the north, but it gives you a good idea of where that band is setting up.
Well, and if you folks are interested, I know a lot of the stations there are in what we call wall-to-wall coverage. Yes. So you can go to WTVD as a TV station. Yes, they're WTVD live streaming. I was watching them right now.
Yep. So, you know, Chapel Hill is just southwest here of Durham, so they're in this band that continues to rotate through.
And there was kind of an amazing video we had posted to our website. A reporter from that station, she happened to be out covering the bad flooding in New Bern, that little city that we've talked about. Yes. And she saw this dog, and you could hear her co-anchors, the CNN clip that they posted, her co-anchors were saying, oh, look, there's Julie. Oh, my gosh, she's going to get that dog. She's got 4 of them at home. She may have another one now. So she really did kind of wait out, was able to get this dog. And the dog, for whatever reason, was kind of, usually you see animals and they seem to have that instinctive knowing We saw some kitties being rescued too, which was really terrifying. I really don't think of cats swimming, but this one cat, it went up on a doorstep, and I think it was spooked by the rescuers, and it really did jump, and then it just, luckily they caught up with the 2 kitties around the house, and I really wondered if they were stray cats or they belonged to someone, but they had the claws out.
Your Chapel Hill locator there. I just put, and that's just, you go north, you're going into Durham right there. You got Chapel Hill just south and east right there.
Betty says it's still raining here in South Carolina. We have a lot of people starting to ask about different North Carolina cities now, and this is a challenge. We have Mocksville, North Carolina.
What'd you say?
Mocksville. John, have you ever heard of Mocksville, North Carolina? No. Oh, you have.
M-O-X?
Any idea where it is on that? It is M-O-C-K-S, I think they said.
So I was thinking M-O-X.
Mocksville. Okay, I've got that coming up here on my trustworthy Google Maps. They have a Walmart Supercenter in Mocksville, North Carolina. They are southwest of Winston-Salem.
You know, it always gets me, the little blue sections always kind of captivate me.
So they're, they're in I-40, so it's right in here somewhere. There it is.
Oh.
There's Mocksville. So there you go. Mocksville, looks like the heaviest bands are rotating to the east of Mocksville, but they're definitely going to be some showers coming through there continuously through the night.
Well, and, you know, seeing Greensboro there, we have a report coming up on CBS 6 News at 11:37. That's actually from our sister station there, WGHP. They have crews out covering the flooding, obviously.
Right.
So that's coming up ahead. And Jasmine Norwood, she was talking to AAA today about I-95 being shut down, and she caught up with some folks who were traveling who had actually been down there, and we're just saying, like you were, that it was kind of a little bit alarming because the detours were, you know, that's why I think state officials are saying if you're, you know, traveling down the East Coast, it might just be better to bypass the state. It's going to take a bit longer, but when you think about how many detours you might run into and the fact that your GPS may be not sending you on a safe route, it's probably a good idea to just take the extra time and bypass the state.
That is true. So, well, I think that pretty much wraps us up tonight. I know Nick is anxious to call it a night. He's been working hard. We've been here all day, and surprisingly, we haven't been on the air yet because of football and so on, but we've all been busy tracking the storm, all the news. So I hope that gives you guys a good update as to the weather that's going on, and I hope those of you that can stay up will tune us in at 11:37 for CBS 6 News, and Nick and I will see you again next weekend. Stay safe, everybody.